Good evening, and welcome to the January 27th, 2014 work session of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining. This is a session that should have happened on the 21st, but we got snowed out, so this is the makeup session. Please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And since we are going live, why don't we actually call the roll? Trustee Garrity.
Present.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Codman.
Present.
Trustee Quezada.
Present.
Trustee Sarayo.
Present.
Good, we're all here. I only have two short messages this evening. The first one is that we congratulate our trustee Quezada and his wife Fern on the birth of their baby Lily. So,
Yeah.
and we congratulate our police chief, whose birthday it is today, who doesn't seem to be here, but he will be.
Not at the moment, but he will be joining us a little bit later.
So we'll do it again.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes, I'm on. Thursday, February 13th, please join us at the Ossining Public Library for a screening about the Hudson Link project. And if that title is familiar to anybody, it's a program that began right here in Sing Sing, and the organizer of it is an Ossining resident, and they've made a documentary about a program that provides college degrees for prisoners. It's a very competitive program within the system, and the recidivism rate among the graduates is 0%. It's been extremely successful, and it's a very as uplifting and a positive view of the prison system as you can imagine, and I expect a very engaging and interesting discussion to follow. So that's Thursday, February 13th at the Ossining Public Library at 6:30. Please join us. And it's pretty cold out. It's getting colder. Your home isn't wonderfully comfortable and extremely efficient in how you heat and cool your home. Please visit energizeossining.org and learn more about how you can provide your home with an energy upgrade for little or no out-of-pocket expenses. Would you like to tell people how wonderfully comfortable your house is?
My house is very warm. I'm very happy.
Nicely done.
It's a good investment, believe me. It's a lot of comfort there.
And we are happy that you are happy. Anyone else?
See the joy that's going around because of what I've done. It's wonderful.
Anyone else? Okay, move on.
Okay, thank you. We have a lengthy and very interesting agenda this evening, and I just want to forewarn we have to be followed by an executive session which has many items that we have to go over. The first item on the agenda this evening is introduction and preliminary discussion. If the board recalls, we had a board retreat last fall, and we were privileged to have John Nolan from the Land Use Center at PACE come in and share some of his ideas with the board. One of the items that came out of that particular meeting was the concept of the village looking again, as we always want to look to better ourselves, to look at the planning process, to look at the interface with the municipal boards, and also as it moves into the building process. So prior to the budget last year, I had a discussion with John to see he had offered some suggestions at that meeting that the board seemed to be receptive to, so we had some conversations prior to budget formulation, and we were able to come to a consensus in terms of some opportunities that PACE Land Use Center would be able to offer the village in terms of improving the process that we already have in place with our really good staff, but it's always doesn't, it's a good idea to always look again. So I'm happy that John is able to be with us this evening, so I will introduce him to you and to the public and ask if John, if you could come to the podium and discuss what we are proposing to do, and perhaps the board will have an opportunity to let their thoughts be known as well. Thank you for coming in tonight.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you, Mayor. members of the board. It's to be here again. I'm here with Jeff LaJava, who is the Senior Managing Attorney of the Land Use Law Center. Jeff is immediately to my left, and we have a couple of our extended crew here. John Cronin from the PACE Academy on the Environment, and Nick Martin, who is with the PACE Energy Center, wanted to come and just get a look at what's going on in the village of Austenine. I've told them so many good things about what you all are doing, and they wanted to come and be with us tonight and hear this session that we're going to have with you right now. We got started about 7 years ago by organizing what we call the Mayor's Redevelopment Roundtable of the Hudson Valley. We got all the large cities and villages from Yonkers to Poughkeepsie, including Newburgh, to come together through the mayors and the trustees and the managers and some of the development officers, economic development, planning directors of the now 11 communities that have about 500,000 population in the Hudson Valley, and began to work with them on common issues, things that they found were problematic. We talked about this a little bit at the retreat that I came to. One of the key things that every city and village that is in the Mayor's Redevelopment Roundtable fingered as a problem was the fact that so many people seemed to think it took too long to get a permit to do things on their properties. And it was in many cases for a variety of different reasons. We found out that every one of our communities is not the same, and has different issues just due to the fact that so many laws and forms are put together at given times, and then times change and things pile up, and the lack of coordination is present. And so we started looking at what all of these communities are doing with their codes, and I presented that to your board. And so I'm here tonight to talk to you and find out from you some of your priorities for getting underway to do such a process in the village of Austenine. And again, there's no template for how this gets done, because each village has grown differently. Its permitting system has evolved differently. It has different types of organization within the village officers and departments. So what we have is a process that we've explained to the village manager and to the corporation council, and we plan to come to the village and go through that process, and by the time we get done, come up with a full report on recommendations that we have from looking at other cities and villages and listening very carefully to what you all are doing, and coming back with a report that has a list of recommendations for how to streamline the development process here in the village of Austenine. I can go through that process with you and go, sort of tick it off item by item. But what we're really here for tonight is just to hear preliminarily from the board as to what you think we ought to be focused on. We do plan to meet with all relevant staff. We plan to meet with all relevant boards. We would hope through the staff and the board to be introduced to some people who are users of the system and get their impressions, and be able to go from those direct conversations to full meetings with your planning board, your zoning board, your historic preservation board, and your environmental advisory council, and find out what they see as some of the problems. When we've done this before, we've often found that the board members themselves have some really good ideas about how things could be streamlined. So we'll take a look at all those things, and then come back again to the staff and to the boards themselves with recommendations, sort of get their feedback on our recommendations, come up with a full set of recommendations for your board to consider. So we're really here tonight to hear some preliminary remarks, if you would, from the board, and get your guidance as to what we might do to proceed with this. Any questions or?
Discussion.
Thank you. One of the interesting parts is that I seen a retrieve find out a little bit more and incorporate this. It's more like a part that is going to be it's going to be working with the planning department and the building department. At some point, maybe even the engineering department, when that comes to a point. one of the biggest concerns that I have seen, that I know we get a lot of complaints is, why is the building department taking so long to get a permit? And a lot of contractors that I know that they come to me and they ask me, why are we doing this? Why are they doing that? Look, that shows the process. It's like, but, and then comparing other villages and other towns and other municipalities where they said, oh, but it don't take that long. But what is going on? But that's one of the primary reasons why I think we want to look into better our system than what we already have. And I think our system works and it's been working, but there's always ways to improve what we have right now. So I think that's a collaboration between the building department again and the planning department. See what we can do. Does everything have to go? You know, and again, that's probably something that Valerie and Al, Valerie are from the planning department director, and Al being our director of code enforcement, he can probably explain to us a little bit more in details how the process works, and maybe we can go from there. You know, then we can be like, all right, maybe this should be this way, not this way, and we'll accelerate the process in a way. And nothing's in set in stone, so to speak, because other municipalities probably are doing something that we are doing now, but they're not doing something that we do better than everybody else. So that's, I want to combine all those items and make what Ossining is, which is better than everybody else.
I think the importance of the moment is that Ossining is developing. It's having really the renaissance that's been on hold for a very long time now. So the more people want to upgrade their homes, the more developers, either small size or large size developers, want to be involved in the village, the more the system has to be streamlined so that we can get it all done.
I think as much as of the process that can be put online is also very useful. You know, having people's plans scanned and put online, and as pieces of the puzzle come together, it goes online, and so at any point, anybody who needs to look at it can see it all. There ought to be a checklist. There ought to be a list of things that you have to do in order to be able to do whatever it is you want to do, whether it's building a deck on the back of your house or a skyscraper. And once those things are checked off and signed off, you shouldn't have to go back. There's a lot of going 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, are the kinds of complaints we get from the users of the system. I also understand that our planning department and building department do a really good job, and a lot of times the people who are complaining, they're not doing what they're supposed to do, they're not doing what they're asked, and they're not doing it in a timely way, and then they blame it on the planning department and the building department. So some of the complaints are really about lazy people not being good at their jobs in construction company, not in our employees. And it's important to state that we have a great building department, we have a great planner, we have great boards, and they mean to do the best possible job for the people of Ossining. That said, we need to help them streamline the process. And I think that a sign-off checklist, so that once each board has looked at it and approved it, it gets signed off and you don't have to go back. That would be great. Getting it all online would be great. As much of the paperwork that you can fill out online would be great. We're also running into, apparently there's lots of different kinds of stamps that different kinds of architects and engineers use, and it's beyond I'm a television cameraman, so I don't know anything about the construction business, okay? But apparently, some stamps are good, some stamps are not so good, and it changes all the time. I think that there needs to be some way of letting people know from the get-go what's going to be accepted, and not have it's accepted now and then they go back 6 months later and say, no, you know, that stamp is no good now, get a different stamp. And that's a complaint that I've heard a bunch of, and I don't understand it very well, but it needs to be addressed. You shouldn't have to do any of that more than once. I guess that's the issue, is, you know,
I think alongside of whatever we put online, there are a lot of people who aren't comfortable using the internet to provide information or to fill out forms. So we have to make it possible for the same thing to happen live with the cast of characters, if you will, that are in charge. So that would be Valerie and her various committees that she works with, and Al department primarily. May end up being more departments. I think you will discover that as you go along, whether or not the engineering department ever needs to be involved in this. If they do, they do. We need to know that. I think it's very important for people who have been helping us build this village back up again.
Go in order if you wanted to make.
Excuse me. Yes, I would. I am interested in your process. I'm interested in the process that you go through of gathering the information from the different parties. So I think at some point, an understanding of your methodology of how you're going to compile and bring all that information together. I think, as you said in the beginning, you've been doing this for 7 years, so you have all this collected knowledge and information about best practices, or what you perceive as best practices, from a lot of different places that you've worked. And my hope that once you've had a chance to look at what we're up to, and begin to collect all that information, then we have that opportunity to look at what other communities are doing and how it works for them, how it doesn't work for them. I mean, I think, failure is something that happens, and if you learn from failure and you learn to improve something because it's not working, I think there's a benefit. So I'm sure you've seen things that don't work, and obviously we'd want the benefit of that guidance. So I certainly agree with the things that were said before, that we have things that are not perfect. We have people that work hard and care about their work, and we want to support them, and we want to give them the tools and the processes they can do their job better, and our citizens and constituents are getting the best quality service for the betterment of all of us.
Thank you.
Hi, John. It's so nice
Hi,
to see
Victoria.
you. I share a lot of the concerns that my colleagues have raised, and I'm look forward to learning what you discover and might suggest. There are a couple of things that the building department deals with the most, and I'm not sure exactly what falls into your purview of the scope of what you're helping us to streamline and improve. But one of them is code enforcement and violations is really a big part of their job. It's not just the building permit process. And I'm wondering if, as you go through the process, if you will have an opportunity to share with us any recommendations or knowledge you have of other communities that have had programs that have been successful in addressing any issues, particularly violations that might have to do with overcrowded or illegal housing. And that has a few steps to it, and the last step has to do with the courts, which is not in our purview at all. But I wonder if while you're looking at this, if there's any recommendations you may have of how we can streamline that end of the process for the amount of time that our building department has to spend and our legal department has to spend in preparing and walking through those steps. If there's a way to prevent or shorten that time period, if you have any experience with other communities, I'd be very interested to hear about that.
Well, in our world, those are two completely separate and both very, very complicated realms, and I think it would be a big challenge for us to do both within this particular scope. There's an awful lot of work going on in other cities and villages, as you probably know. Trying to figure out how to deal with that latter problem is very, very difficult, very, very difficult. But we certainly can talk about it and see what we can come up with. I don't believe it's within the scope of our contract under this particular endeavor to do that but happy to talk to you about it.
Thanks.
But I believe, last work session, we did talk about something else, and I understand, the scope of work that you were given, but we are looking into that process already. I think Laura Lee, or at some point, Bowles, have that. They are going to be looking into. At some point, I mean, that could be an integration of after, they finish the studies, solutions, and we can integrate that at that point.
I think it is two separate issues,
Yeah, yeah,
however.
yeah.
So it'd be a step
It's
two.
not in the scope of this. If you have this in front of us, it's not in the
I
scope.
mean, it's something that's going to help us.
Yeah,
We have to move forward with both of them at
Yes.
the same time. I think definitely two different issues. One of the things that I forgot to mention, and I'm sure through the process that you find, is there's a whole integration of all different departments, and I think, and I'm not sure if plan was or is part of the scope that you were thinking of doing, also have chairmen of the planning board, architecture review board, of the zoning board be part of the study. I'm not sure if that was part of the whole.
It is. It
Okay.
definitely is.
Good. Are you also going to speak to some people who've recently built things here?
Yes.
That would be great.
Yes.
If you talk to sort of a post-mortem on their projects, what really worked, what things that they felt need to be improved, that would be tremendously useful.
Yes, and we'll be relying on staff to give us some cases to look at and be sure we cover the waterfront of the types of things that have recently been approved and how it went.
covering the waterfront, I think, is very good. Because
You like
we
that?
have that ongoing
I
project.
didn't mean to raise any specters there, Mayor.
They are just about ready to break ground on the waterfront.
Excellent. Excellent.
It's still working until the 5th, the 12th, and then the 19th, and I think then we'll have finished the process. at our
Terrific.
end.
Well, it's going to be a real pleasure to work with you because that comment you made, Mayor, about the renaissance that's been so long delayed in Austin, we do feel that it's coming, and a lot of the things you talked about code enforcement, are relevant to some of your larger buildings and some of your major projects, because if you indeed build sustainable buildings, there have to be enforcement processes to be sure they stay sustainable over time. So this is going to be an exciting place for us to be working, and we're looking forward to getting it started.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you so much. We appreciate you all coming this evening. We'll move on to the next item. If anyone has any other comments, or we're good?
Yeah. When are you thinking of starting the process?
This is it. We just got started.
Right.
Yes.
When, so the
Am
next-
I right? We got a couple of details we have to take care of. But, right.
So from today, when do you think, what is your timeline back to us? And either give us like a preview.
To be
of
back
what's
to
going on?
the village board. Well, we didn't actually work out a timeline. We worked out a series of steps, and on the 8th step, we will be back to give a final report to the board. I haven't put months on that because quite often the process is like an accordion that moves according to what we hear from all the people that we talk to, and if we can move very efficiently with the boards, that saves us a huge amount of time. If we have to go to each individual board meeting, that's going to take longer, although they do all meet every month, and we might be able to make it around to all boards, but then things can come up and we may need to go back. Just like applicants, we may have to go back for a second bite at the zoning board, for example, and so we don't know precisely when, but we plan to put a lot of time on this project as soon as we get the paperwork done.
So when you say you have the 8th step, which will be the final step, in between those steps, is anything that you should have, so, coming to see us to give us like a preview of what's going on, or we get the final on the,
I think you made it clear that the 8th step is coming back.
so there's 2 more steps
Tell
after
us
that.
what he's, yeah.
There will be an assessment report early on. There'll be some suggestions for streamlining relatively early on. There'll be a strategy that's prepared relatively early on. I see no reason why some of those documents can't be shared with the board as and when
I
they're
would think all those documents should.
delivered to the staff. Yeah, the final report would come as a result of all of that having been digested and rolled into a final document.
We would like to see at each step, there's 10 steps, it looks like there. Each time you finish a step, we'd like some kind of written report to the
Okay.
board.
That's good enough.
Thank you, sir.
You should have the wisdom to know what you can change.
Yeah, and the only other question I would have, and I wasn't sure if that was something you were going to disclose at the meeting, but, you know, just sort of understanding your methodology, you know, how you gather your data, how you collect it, you know, what, I mean, is it narrative, is it figures and statistics? I mean, what are the different elements that you're going to use to put together the study? I'm just curious how you approach it, just so I can understand, you know, kind of how you go about it. How do you get your arms around it?
You want me to talk about that tonight, or do you just?
Well, I'd like to understand it. It doesn't have, we don't have to take up the time in this meeting to do that, but at some point, I'd like some sort of an interaction, either, you know, you can show me a PowerPoint charts or whatever you want to do, a project plan, you know, something like that that kind of says,
Okay.
well, here's what we're doing, here's what we want to accomplish on each step, that sort of thing.
Okay.
That'd just be helpful for me, just so I can educate myself on what you're doing and then the direction you're.
Understood.
Thank you.
Good, thank you, John.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Next item.
Thank you. The next item is a discussion on the, what John had sort of alluded to initially. It's a discussion of the shared redevelopment program of the mayor's roundtable. So either John or the mayor, whomever would like to speak to this.
Like me to take the lead? As I mentioned earlier, we have for many years been working with the mayors of all the larger urban villages and cities in the Hudson Valley on what we called a shared services program. It's almost as though we created this idea that all of the development directors, the economic development directors, the mayors, members of the legislative bodies would come together once every 3 or 4 months, and having created an agenda of their common problems, hear back from their staff and from us and our research what some other communities around the country are doing with respect to those issues. And so if you can possibly imagine this, we sort of work together as a single group, sharing our services, looking deeply at issues that are under attack in certain villages and cities, trying to learn what we can from those. We've got a tremendous group of students at our law school that are extremely bright and very capable researchers, and they can go find nationally case studies on nearly anything that any of our cities or villages are dealing with. And we put all that together, and then we give reports back. We meet separately with the Corporation Council. Laura Lee, you'll be invited to, if you sign up, you'll be invited to these Corporation Council meetings. We meet with the lawyers for all of these cities and villages once every quarter, and we ascertain that what we're coming up with from other places does square with New York law as far as they're concerned. We give our own opinion on that, but we rely on your lawyers to make the final judgments. And then we come to the mayor's roundtable, and we give reports, and we have people come who are experts in the field, and they report in on these different topics. One of the topics is streamlining. Just one of the topics is streamlining. One of the huge emphases in this effort is economic development, and looking at comprehensive plans, looking at zoning, looking at practices, looking at incentives, a variety of other issues, market studies, to be able to try to help the communities in the Mayor's Redevelopment Roundtable achieve higher level of economic development, increase their tax bases. All of your villages, all of your cities in this group are struggling to pay for municipal services. We've got the tax cap that you're dealing with, and you've got a lot of tax-exempt properties on the market, and so it's really imperative that all of these cities and villages focus on their economic development plans and strategies. So that's going to be the strong emphasis of the Mayor's Redevelopment Roundtable. I was talking to your mayor about this the other day because we just got the very good news that through the Department of State we got a local government efficiency grant to continue the Mayor's Redevelopment Roundtable and the Corporation Council's Roundtable for another 2 years. And so it seemed to me, since we were going to be engaged with you all under this contract, that it made sense to offer to the village of Austining that it join the Mayor's Redevelopment Roundtable. So I suggested that to the mayor. He said, come and talk a little bit about it. We need a resolution from you that supports our application, already made, already funded, to the Department of State so we can get you signed up to be part of that effort. And we need your authority to let the mayor sign a letter to us saying that he will cooperate with our Mayor's Redevelopment Roundtable.
Is there a fee to the village for this?
That's a great idea. Would you like to? No, no, there's no fee.
Well, we like that. It doesn't cost anything.
No, there's no fee.
In your studies that you've done up until now, have you done a look at addressing the problem of overcrowding illegal housing?
No, that has not been raised by our Mayor's Redevelopment Roundtable as one of the problems that we should look into.
I would very much, I think that's a really important thing, and it sounds like with this great resource of students to do the legal research, they should be able to find those best practices where some municipality somewhere in New York has found a way to not violate the rights of a landlord and yet give probable cause for building departments to go in and do the inspections that are necessary so that our first responders aren't put at risk every time they go to a fire at a house that's supposed to have 2 families and it's got 17.
It's a huge problem. Huge
Yes.
problem.
And that something you guys could do?
Well, I can't make that commitment tonight because it's a deliberative
We'll-
group, and there's now going to be
That's something we could do.
11 members of that group. We'll have to create an agenda, the first meeting that we have later in the year.
Well, let me rephrase. I'm not asking you to do it. I'm asking if do you have the skill set to be able to do that if your members voted to ask you to?
We do.
That's good news. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So clearly that will be something that we will put in the hopper.
Okay.
Now, when in questions regards to the meetings, you said mayors. So it's only the mayors that are allowed to go to these type of functions, or is there trustees allowed to be in these meetings as well?
Not only are trustees allowed, but they're very, very welcome. We have so much trouble getting elected officials who have many, many other things to do and a huge agenda to come to anything that we sponsor. We're always delighted when an elected official comes because the policies that have to be made are the responsibility of the Board of Trustees. So we'd love to have you come.
Typically, what day is your meetings? What time?
We usually meet on Thursday mornings at 8:30 until about 11, and the dates are already in the calendar for the rest of 2014, but I don't have them with me.
Okay.
Perhaps you could
April
send them.
16th, September 3rd, and November 19th.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
So is it then a consensus that we'll put this on for resolution to support membership
Yes,
by the village into the round?
Enthusiastically, I think it's a wonderful opportunity for us to harness the intellectual capital of so many people from the Pace Land Use Law Center and from the other municipalities. I'm really looking forward to seeing what we learn from it. Thank you very much for including
You're
us.
very welcome. We'd be delighted to have you.
Might I reach out to you to get a sample resolution or a sample language to include in a resolution? Would that be appropriate? We do.
Yes.
Uh,
No,
Okay, then I will obtain it and we'll get it on the
I
agenda.
have it, I would think.
John, is there a website that you guys have?
We don't have a website on the Mayor's Redevelopment Roundtable. Jeff, do we have anything that would be helpful for them to go look at that's on the web? Okay.
Okay. All right. No problem. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great.
Terrific, John.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you, John.
Thank
all
you.
for being so excited about it.
Great.
Thank you so much. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is an update and some further information on the Kilbrook Trail, the seeker review that's required, and Village Planner Valor Manastra is here. Valor, if you come forward.
Good evening.
Evening?
As you know, the sanitary sewer line, that work is moving forward. And under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, the sanitary sewer line replacements that's all considered type 2, so it's nothing that needs environmental review. However, the pedestrian pathway, which will run along and at times actually on top of the new sewer line, actually does require an environmental review. And this particular the pedestrian trailway actually falls under what they call the unlisted action. So basically what I am doing is sort of dotting our I's and crossing our T's to make sure that we have all the paperwork that is required before the onset of the construction of the pedestrian trailway. So this particular project will require a short environmental assessment form, and it will require the Environmental Advisory Council to review it for LWRP consistency. So I'm asking this board to pass a resolution at Wednesday's meeting asking for the LWRP, the EAC for a recommendation. And then the recommendation would be for their meeting in February. And then therefore, you'll be able to adopt a negative declaration, your second meeting in February.
Yeah,
So it's just
Wednesday's
really a
meeting
matter
is
of
next week.
administration. What?
Wednesday's meeting is next week, not this week.
Yes, that's correct. So you're gonna, right.
Yes.
It's all gonna happen pretty much on the
yeah, we should do
same day, more or less.
2 days.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
So, all right, care of that. We go on the next one.
Okay, great. Valerie, we have an updated agenda. Are you speaking to the request for the Westchester County Municipal Planning?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
The other item I wanted to talk to this board about tonight is Westchester Municipal Planning Federation has their yearly planning awards. The Planning Achievement Awards are supposed to focus on projects that have been recognized for comprehensive planning, downtown revitalization, unique zoning techniques, planning, innovative planning, and they're all supposed to be tied with an overall broader sense. So it's not just a project, but the project is linked to a broader plan or concept. And so what I'd like to do is submit for the Avalon project because one, they are one of the first projects that have fully developed under our new zoning. Also, we used incentive zoning to get a lot of the amenities. And then also we have incorporated not only historic preservation, but affordable housing, open space, Riverwalk, all within the one development. So I would like to submit that for a Planning Achievement Award.
What do you need from us to do that?
Just, okay, you don't really need to have a resolution or anything, just, yeah.
Yeah, I actually drove through it last night. The fences are down. You can drive through and see some of the buildings. It's quite a transformation of that space. Not so long ago, there was a deserted BASF building, so
I've been in the model apartments also, and they're quite stunning. The most stunning part of it is the brilliant light. All of those apartments have very large windows.
Yes,
so
they do.
the rooms, while already fairly large, look a lot larger because the outside is part of the room.
Right.
It's quite wonderful. And even on some of the ground floor apartments in the front buildings, you can see the river. And
You can,
see
yes,
across the river too. It's really beautiful. Cool.
that is correct.
Oh, yeah.
You had the lottery this week, I think.
Right.
We had it this morning, yes, so.
You wanted to say something
Did you
about that?
no, but some very happy families won.
Yeah.
Yes,
So-
yes. Well, as of right now, we did select candidates for all the units that are available. We will be contacting everybody within the next 48 hours to let them know if they were selected in the lottery, as well as where they are on the wait list if they weren't selected. And we had today we actually had 10 people come to witness the lottery, and 2 of them, ironically, were selected in the lottery. So they were very happy families.
Bad.
How many units were in the lottery?
17 total.
17?
Yes.
And just for curiosity, do you know how many people played the lottery?
Well, we had about 39 applicants for 3 bedrooms, 39 for 2 bedrooms, and 27 for 1 bedroom.
Wow, so it was a good turnout.
Yeah. It was.
Nice job.
Thank
Sorry, Valerie, one quick question.
Sure.
You know what is the completion of that project? Do you happen to know?
They are, well, they're going to do it, they're going to complete the project in phases. So they're focusing on building 1 right now, and they hope to have that done by the end of February. Then we're going to go into building 2, 3, and 4. And then before building 4 is given its final CL, the whole entire site will be complete.
Got it. Cool.
So we're working on a lot of final legal documentation, and Al's working on finishing up the building inspections, and we're trying to get everything ready for building 1.
And the restoration of the Kane House is underway, and it looks terrific.
Yes, and they hope to have that done by building 2, so it does look really great.
Yeah. I wasn't able to see when I drove through at night, but the aqueduct goes right through there, and that was another interesting element of it that I'm sure either you mentioned or we'll get to see in your presentation as what an interesting thing this is that you're nominating.
Oh, yes, well, and the fact that the trailways that connect from Crawbucky will connect right to the aqueduct. So that there's a number of different avenues now that people will be able to take to our downtown and then also through Ossining, so it's very exciting.
Right.
We've won a significant number of awards year after year from the Planning Federation.
If we have won 3 awards so far.
That's great.
And recent.
Yes.
When is the big event?
It will be in June if we do get selected.
The Oscars of the planning industry. Looking forward to it.
I know, right?
Next.
Thank you, Valerie.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next item, our village treasurer, Tom Warren, is here. He wants to speak to establishing capital projects. Tom?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the Board of Trustees. After the capital plan was adopted, and now that we're in the 2014 fiscal year, the department heads are looking to purchase some of the equipment and start some of the capital projects that were included in the capital plan. So based on timing of projects that are soon to be underway, I've submitted 5 bond resolutions to cover 8 capital projects. The 8 projects being for the VACL truck for DPW, $300,000, the Parks Department trucks, $90,000, and the curb machine for the DPW department, $20,000. Those 3 items are similar, so they'll be included in one bond resolution. The police cars, the 2 motorcycles for the police department, totaling $185,000, are also similar type items and will be included in a bond resolution. The radio heater system will be in a bond resolution by itself for $85,000. And the 2 generators, one at the Rodriguez Operations Center for $225,000, which is actually less than the amount that was included in the capital plan based on the latest projected cost of that project. And the generator for the Indian Brook water treatment plant, $750,000. Those 2 will be combined into a bond resolution. And the final project, which will have a bond resolution all by itself because of the magnitude and the number of years that it can be bonded for, will be to reline and replace water mains throughout the village for a total of $2.6 million. So the total projects cost $4,255,000, but most of this is from the water fund, more than $3.5 million. $665,000 is attributable to the general fund, and $60,000 is for the sewer fund.
Great, thank you. These for in case anyone in the public has forgotten, the village board approved on the early December board meeting, approved what we had already worked out at the various budget sessions, all of these plans, and now this is the final giving our final okay to go ahead with the.
And there were two additional projects, the potential for the street paving projects and also project for the Spring Street two-way street. Those aren't ready to go, so therefore we don't have bond resolutions for those.
Question. I know in terms of fire department apparatus, one of the things that was looked at was the Rescue 14 truck, which is past due to be replaced, was discovered that instead of spending $500,000 to replace it, we could spend around $160,000 to have it completely refurbished. And the thought was brought up, and I'm wondering if you've looked into it, that if we're going to save all that money, could we do it sooner rather than later? And I was wondering if we were having any movement in that area.
I have not been looking at that, but from my perspective, if the board wants to move a capital project forward from a future year, that's the board's prerogative. I would have to, get information from the fire department.
Right. John, I guess we'll be meeting with the chiefs talking about this. But the idea is instead of doing the rescue truck new for $500,000 to $600,000 in 2016, we refurbish it at the end of 14 and into 15, so we get it back sooner. And since we're saving all that money, doing it sooner is the reward we get for being so thrifty.
Doing it sooner while the interest rates are lower than
Yes.
they may be then.
Exactly. So that's a thing to put out there.
Well, it's something that we need to see what the cost. So, John, if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, I think the chiefs, I mean, I'm in communication with them on an ongoing basis. Something that brought up Bob, and I've had passing discussions with the chiefs. They haven't come to me formally, but I'll certainly reach out to them. And
Thank you very much.
Also, Tom, you and I and Richard and Bill Hanauer are going to be having some focus groups discussions to really delve deeply into our budget and also perhaps what might be coming down from Albany as far as all but requiring us to make some changes, perhaps even this year, we'll see. And if we needed to make changes in what we had intended to spend, it's less than $300,000 that we went over the tax cap.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right now, and forgive me if I get terminology wrong, but right now we have a note that'll take us through till November for these anticipated expenses, and then in November you're going to go to the bond market and get these. Is that
For all
the
these
sequence?
projects that are being mentioned tonight, nothing has been borrowed.
Okay.
The first step before you can actually borrow anything, even a one-year bond anticipation note, is you have to first pass the bond resolution, which gives the authority to go out to the bond market and issue either serial bond or a bond anticipation note until such time as you're ready to issue a serial bond. Or in the case of the police cars, because they're only a 3-year life, our intent would be to issue a bond anticipation note over the 3 years. So no debt has been issued for any of these projects, pending approval from the Board of Trustees at the next legislative meeting to approve the bond resolutions. And then even then, the bond resolutions need to be advertised, and we have to wait for the permissive period as well as for the estoppel period as well to allow the public to potentially challenge the board action to issue the debt.
And there would be no payments due this year on anything, right?
That's correct. The debt would be issued in November. Some of it would be bond anticipation note. Some of it could potentially be a serial bond if we're confident of what the cost is, like for instance, probably the VACL truck, we would know exactly what the cost would be. so that would probably be included in a serial bond. But I also need enough projects to put together to actually make it worthwhile to issue a serial bond. Sometimes, and we haven't done it for the past couple of years, but sometimes we just leave these as bond anticipation notes until such time as we have enough notes to put together to actually go out for a 20-year bond.
I guess I also just wanted to be sure that I understand that we could go ahead and approve these resolutions anticipating that, as we had discussed in the original budget, that this would go ahead moving forward, but that most of these things have not been purchased yet, correct?
That is correct. Nothing's been purchased in order because we need to establish the capital projects, and that gives the authorization to the department heads to actually potentially start submitting purchase orders, or come back, and like on the water mains, the next step would be to come back to authorize putting the project out for bid.
But they could go as soon as we approve anything next week. The police department or the DPW department could go out and start purchasing things, because we've said, go ahead, you can purchase them. We're putting out a promissory note, and then at the end of later in the year, we'll go and we'll bond for them.
I don't think that I'll be seeing any purchase orders next Wednesday, the day after, because we still need to follow the publishing guidelines for publishing the note resolutions or the bond resolutions, and so I'd want to wait at least the 30 days for the permissive referendum period to make sure that there's no challenges, and then there's another 30-day estoppel period on some of these.
Did you just say Gestapo?
Estoppel.
Thank you.
Not gazpacho either.
Okay, but they could be purchased before you go to the bond market in November. And by that same token,
probably most of them will be well underway by the time we go to the bond market, probably in November.
And by that same token, if for whatever reason there was a decision that one thing or another that we had anticipated would be appropriate to buy this year, we say, for whatever reason, we're not going to buy it this year, there's still an opportunity. We haven't signed on the dotted line to purchase all of these items as of next week. We've just enabled ourselves to move forward as anticipated, but we can make changes until the things are purchased.
Correct.
I would say that the board can always change their mind, but sometimes when you give authority to go out and purchase something, if the village has actually issued a purchase order to go ahead and buy something, I think that we might be committed to actually buy it, and then it might be a case of trying to find a different financing source for that project, or maybe find something else in the budget that could be substituted, reduced in order to accommodate the changed wishes of the board.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, John. Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to, we've spoken a little bit this evening about capital projects. I just wanted to touch on them very briefly. You have sort of an updated capital project sort of report that's been updated as of last week. There haven't been a lot of changes since we spoke last. Some of the capital projects that are in the hopper have been mentioned this evening. The generator at the Rodriguez Center is as described this evening. No further change from what we described on the streets and sidewalk resurfacing. We have the Main Street and Secor Road project is well underway and should be finished up shortly. The historic signage as well. I will say that with respect to the top of page 3, with respect to the Market Square and parking lot redevelopment potential, we anticipate that the downtown group will be coming in on February 12th to provide your final report, and then you'll have an opportunity to decide what you would like to do with that information. Also, with respect, there was some discussion about the Spring Street two-way proposal that has been approved to implement the trial period in the spring. Paul's engaged a traffic engineer to help actually facilitate the experimental part, if you will, or the pilot part, As you will, there was, recall, there was some limited costs associated with that. We believe that they'll be less than $20,000. So if you recall, the actual permanent installation could be as high as $100 or as low, or $100,000 or as low as $20,000. But you'll have plenty of opportunity to review that. Paul will be coming in with a proposal to you in terms of, there's actual some engineering details that had to be implemented beyond the report that was submitted by the traffic engineer. With respect to the Kilbrook sanitary sewer, the sanitary sewer system, the relining operation is scheduled to begin in February 2014, and the project is to be completed by the fall in accordance with the stipulation with the DEC. The dam project, we know, has been, the DAM reconstruction project has been put over as we await the results of a grant application that we submitted. The generators we've spoken about, and I will say there was one on behalf of the community center sun deck for the rear of the community center, which is we're hoping to do in conjunction with the Kilbrook project and the pedestrian path. We received news today from the county that they would be funding and matching their original commitment for $72,000. So that was good news, and that will help us with that project.
How much
And
dollar amount?
theirs is about $72,000, and the whole project should be about $140. So that's really that's the major changes on that particular schedule.
Great.
So if I can just move to sort of a village manager report over the last month, really. As the board is aware, I've also been communicating weekly with you as well, so this is more broad-based, and so I'll just sort of hit some of the things that we've been working on over the last month, and also numerous items that we have to speak about in executive session, which will follow. Items that are executive in nature, personnel, etc. So I just want to mention on behalf of the bicentennial wrap-up, I'm happy to report that the village received the second half of the county contract, which funded the tourist aspects and the bicentennial sculpture exhibit in part. The total contract award was $19,500, and we received the check. Actually, was deposited today for $9,750. So we thank our county legislator, Catherine Borgia. I thank her for meeting with me and also helping to facilitate that, as well as the county executive office and the Office of Tourism. Natasha Caputo helped us out a lot, and we thank them for the assistance and for their input in helping foster that exhibit. It was not a grant from the county, it was actually a contract for services rendered, and we had to show the number of participants who participated in the event in order to be reimbursed, if you will. So it was really an economic driver for tourism, and we were paid based on all those great kids that you saw crossing the street going to the exhibit, and all the people that came in to visit and that were guided by the docents. So that was really a Westchester County tourism initiative, and we're really happy that it worked out so well. The $19,500 went a long way towards helping us fund the project, which we estimated was less than $50,000. The rest was, of course, funded by the bicentennial. We had literally hundreds of people attending the event, and it really contributed to the area and the county economy. So we thank our County of Westchester partners for that. As I reported to you, but I can report to the public, the village was instrumental as well in securing the sale of one of the sculptures to a local resident. In accordance with the agreement with the curator and the artists, the village received a commission for its efforts in negotiating and finalizing the sale. That money's been deposited as well. In the last month, we've had additional meetings with Cablevision and the town of Ossining in furtherance of the settlement of the outstanding cable contract. We're awaiting final details from the company and for the village and town attorneys to confer, and we anticipate bringing the final agreement to the board for approval shortly.
On that, Richard, did you guys get them to run cable across the river so that the people on the other side, on the water side of the railroad tracks, can watch television?
No, I mean, we brought that up. I don't. Perhaps you weren't there at that meeting. We did bring it up as an issue. They said they were aware of the Harbor Square development, and as soon as that gets underway, they will do it. It's economically driven, so they were not willing to do it without that incentive.
Okay.
But yes,
But it's
I definitely did bring it up. They're aware of it, and yes, it will come.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Had several meetings with the village planner, the corporation council, the downtown manager to finalize the downtown development group submission for redevelopment of the parking areas, which I mentioned we will be bringing back to you on February 12th at the community center at 7:30 in the evening. The public is invited, and we're hoping that, and we are encouraging you to attend. This is a proposal to redevelop the downtown, if you will, the vacant parking areas, and there are a number of options that I know the board would like everyone to be able to experience, and your opinions are sought. And so we definitely encourage everyone to attend that meeting on February 12th at the community center. Most recently, we had an OEM meeting, and we discussed the holding of a tabletop exercise in the fall. This is something that's done annually by the village, where we do an exercise with some leadership training, and we often interface with the town of Ossining, the county of Westchester. We've even interfaced with Metro North and with the county police. I continue to confer with the Corporation Council on miscellaneous town court matters. We've had a number of personnel matters, some of which I will speak to you about shortly in executive session. Last week, I attended the annual breakfast of the Westchester County Association with our Manager of Economic Development, Ingrid Richards, and we had the opportunity to meet with the Director of Economic Development of the County of Westchester and the Director of the Westchester Council for the Arts, and we continued some dialogue that we're having to help to ask for their assistance in helping us here in Ossining. We continue to have ongoing discussions with the developer and their representatives on Harbor Square related issues as Corporation Council works diligently to bring the latter back to you for your consideration and ultimate approval. I recently met with the village manager of the village of Briarcliff Manor and the Ossining Town Supervisor. I discussed areas of mutual concern as well as areas of additional potential future intermunicipal cooperation. I met with the treasurer and the deputy treasurer in connection with the upcoming meetings on tax cap analysis and the current status of the village's financial condition, and also as relating to potential state legislation, as mentioned by Trustee Garrity. We have a short week this week, and there are actually a couple of issues that I want to focus on to bring to the initial session. So I'm going to speak to the mayor and trustee to see if we can set up a date next week to get together. I met recently with the executive director of IFCA on matters of concern with respect to their properties. We're awaiting additional information to see how we might accommodate their needs and also to address any concerns that they have. I've had a meeting recently with the fire chiefs on possible enhancement of facilities, and we'll speak on that later as well. General matters, of course, I've been meeting with department heads on miscellaneous matters, the Kilbrook Sewer Project, the water supply RFP, which has been received and we're currently analyzing, and we will bring additional information back to you once the administrative part is complete. And we've also been speaking about the Indian Brook Dam project and the status of the grant. We've had meetings with the village treasurer, the deputy, as well as the chief of police and corporation council in connection with the village's operation of the overnight parking process, which I would say all in all is going well. We've actually, it was incorporated within the treasurer's office, and we've made additional assistance available as necessary, and it's really, it's incorporated a whole revamping of the process, the application, the paperwork, just sort of trying to streamline, as they say, to try to accommodate our residents as best we can. So there's a little bit of settling in period, but I think all in all it will end up being a good resolution. And then we have the routine meetings with the board, preparation for the staff meetings. I have the weekly staff meetings and the weekly board meetings as well. So those are the items I want to mention this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. There's one other item we need to announce, if you will, that the Westchester County IDA Board unanimously approved the tax relief for Harbor Square, which means that Harbor Square, when we have finished all of our paperwork, the LATA and the pilot, will go forward. With that, shall we?
Before you go,
Yeah.
I'd like to say something. I want to let folks know that I'm going to be among the missing for the next 4 weeks. I have some health issues, and I'm having major surgery on Friday. And I'm going to be recuperating in the hospital for a week, and then for 4 weeks at home. I'm hoping that Craig, our IT guy, can hook it up so that I can participate on conference call in the work sessions. And I'll be reading all the materials and staying abreast, but you won't see my shining face on TV during February. And I want to let you know that. So thank you.
Thank you, Bob, and best of and craft and art, all of the above. With that, I hear a motion to adjourn to executive session for the purposes of personnel and
So moved.
For the purposes of personnel, for the purpose of discussing specific persons, and also to obtain legal advice on related matters, real estate, et cetera.
So moved.
Second.
those in favor.
Aye.
You. This ends the televised portion of this evening's agenda. We'll see you next Wednesday night at this very same place, the courthouse at 8688 Spring Street, for a legislative session. Do plan to join us. Good night.